Make sure you get the beer in the gut right there. Okay. All right. So I run a bunch of storytelling shows in the Valley, and our theme is, as you can see, all people, all stories, diversity without checking boxes. And that has been our motto. I basically, at this point, I'm like an executive producer, and I work with multiple producers, and I just support them to run their shows. And the fascinating thing is, I would like to tell you right now that this was my vision from the beginning, that this is what I wanted to do, and that this was who I was from the start. But honestly, what happened is I was doing stand-up comedy in New York City, and I'd fallen in love with storytelling, moth storytelling, and things like that in New York, first-person storytelling. I just felt, for me, it was so much more important than just straight stand-up. After doing a few years of straight stand-up, I felt like it was like a snare drum, and that's all I had on the stage, and about every 45 seconds I was just going set up punch, set up punch, set up punch, set up punch. And I wasn't good enough to like get the deeper parts of my life that I wanted to get into what I was doing on stage. And then storytelling hit, and I thought, oh my God, as Leah said, it was like more being on a piano and being able to have rhythm and melody and minor keys and major keys, and comedy could be part of it. And so I came back to Phoenix for a variety of reasons. That is a whole different story. And there were no storytelling mics here. Nobody was doing storytelling here. And I would go to comedy mics and I would start telling stories, and people would be like, seriously, dude? This is just like do a freaking stand. And so I was like, okay, I just need to start my own storytelling mic. And a friend of mine happened to own a bookstore, and he said, well, do it here. And I did. And for the first few shows, it was basically me and homeless people on the street telling our stories. It was actually very beautiful. That's a whole other story as well, because I did a lot of volunteer work with homeless people for many years. So we got each other on some levels, but I needed to kind of raise the quality of storytelling. And so after about a year of doing storytelling open mics, I wanted to do events that were more curated, and I wanted to call it Storyline. And so I started doing a series of workshops, because I thought part of what you have to do is you have to teach people how to be able to, you have to teach people how to fish, right? I mean, it's a cliche, but you do. So I decided I'll do a few shows to teach people about first-person storytelling. And the amazing thing is, I thought I was going to have to do like 3 of these. My first one, it was just, it was synchronicity in the true Jungian kind of way. Everyone that signed up for my first class ever, which this has never happened to me before and never happened to me since, but that first class, they were all like these amazing human beings with the just diversity of the globe in every way that you mean diversity. I mean, one guy was an MIT grad, and then someone else had done like 2 semesters at Mesa Community College, but they were all amazing storytellers who wanted to get involved in storytelling. So really, without meaning to, it was like this United Nations of storytelling, and we became this collective, and we started these shows, and everyone was like, oh my God, this is like the most diverse thing we've ever seen in Arizona. And I was kind of the producer of it, and it was like, you have an amazing vision. And I was kind of like, yes, I do. I mean, I didn't. I'll admit it. I really didn't. That was just this beautiful, lucky, wonderful thing that happened, and we all just kind of clicked as storytellers, and we worked together. So this story is about how this wasn't really planned. Oh yeah, we'll go to the next slide. So this is like, so we actually run a storytelling open mic here. This is clearly a plug, but it's also showing you that this was recently created by one of my producers. And right after the election, she threw this up on Facebook: all voices, all stories, always. And we as storytellers decided that creating spaces for people to share their humanity is more important than ever. And so then she put up this slide, and we had our show last night, and it was very cathartic for a lot of people because they just shared their stories, not their opinions, just their stories. So this still runs with us today, and it's a deep thread in terms of who we are and what we do as a collective identity. But it actually really all started because of a major fuck-up of mine. It was our 3rd curated show, and we were used to every show we did, there was like we always had like 6 tellers, and there was always like 3 women and 3 men. And on the third show, all of a sudden, it was going to be shaking out to be like 5 dudes and a woman. And the woman is kind of my co-creator. Her name is Rachel Egboro. And I said to Rachel, I can't just have you being the only woman representing. I'm going to find someone else. Now we have kind of a vast network of people who are storytellers, but at that time, it was just like the 10 of us. And the other women just couldn't be on that show. So the big fuck up, which I'll admit right now, is I just decided I just have to find a woman. Just a woman. I just need to put a woman on the show. That's all I need. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, I wasn't all Donald Trump about it, but I was like just walking up. So there was a woman at work that kind of knew what the Moth was and liked Ira Glass. She was like, he's cool. Yeah, we'll do that. So I'm like, okay, boom, I want you on my show. You can do my show. And she's like, oh, I'd love to. I'm like, great, okay. So and I didn't even really get the fact that I should maybe find out if she had a story about it. And I don't even remember what the theme was. So she shows up to the first rehearsal. We do a rehearsal. And, okay, I was an English teacher for a long time. As teachers, here's the thing about storytelling that makes it wonderful as far as I'm concerned. Most of our life, we tell our opinions or our beliefs, which beliefs are just opinions people would die for, as far as I'm concerned. But we just tell our opinions most of the time. And that's fine. That's what we do. But storytelling, true storytelling to me, is actually taking a lot of your opinions out and just sharing the narrative and letting who you are as a human being with that narrative come out to your audience and letting them meet you in the space in between to make their connections. And so a bad story is if someone tells you a story and then when they're done with the narrative, they spend 2 to 3 minutes explaining to you what it meant. That to me is like a bit of like, I tell you a joke, you laugh, and then I spend 3 minutes telling you why it's funny. That's a horrible situation for you, right? And for for people who are involved in storytelling, they don't know that there's like a science, there's an art to it. But anyway, I was a new producer. So she kind of had a story, but it was mostly her explaining the story because she's used to talking to young people, and she, as I am as well, she's used to like giving a lot of the meaning, a lot of the exposition, as I say. So the first rehearsal, it was mostly exposition. Like of the 8 minutes, there was like a 1-minute story and a 7-minute explanation of what we, the audience, should understand what the story meant to her. Which, if you've ever had someone do that, as I said, you start looking at your watch, you start like thinking about your phone, even if you're too polite to pull it out of your pocket or your purse, you're thinking about it. You're like, I wonder what's happening on my phone, because it's far more interesting than what's happening right now, because I don't care about her opinions of her story. I'm not connecting to it. And Rachel said to me, dude, you need to do something about this. I'm like, no. We need 2 women on the show. She's like, she's not a storyteller. She's just like, that's more like a sermon. I'm like, no. We need to do this. And so we go into the second rehearsal. And the second rehearsal is worse. It's like 15 seconds of story. And then 7 minutes and 45 seconds of explanation of what the story meant. She had just taken it to the bare bones, like this, and then the rest was her analyzing the story in front of us. Now, what comics do, by the way, all they do is their opinion, but they tell jokes, which I'm clearly not doing tonight. But this is a story. This isn't a comedy set. But she wasn't doing any of that either. She was just straight talking through in this monotone voice of what was happening and what she felt about it. And again, Rachel said, dude, that's messed up. You need to talk to her. So I talked to her and I said, you need to make it more about the story and less about like your opinion about the story. And she's like, I got it. I'm like, great. So we go up, we put her up second on the show. And she did expand it. She made the story 2 minutes. And the first 2 minutes of her story it was okay. It was kind of an outline. It's hard to tell a story in 2 minutes. It's not just kind of like a bare bones outline of a story. But then she started going into the exposition like she was a teacher. She actually switched into her teacher voice. You know what I'm saying? Like all of a sudden she went from like storytelling voice to teacher voice. I don't think it went that low for her. But that's, anyway. So she started doing that, and it would have been okay if it was the 8 minutes that we had given her. But she went on for a total of over 15 minutes. This is a new audience, this is a new show, and there's someone who's just talking and talking in a monotone teacher voice, minute after minute after minute. People walked out of the show. Actually, there's one friend that walked out and he's never been back to one of my shows, because that's his, like, this is like 6 years ago. I'm like, no, dude, actually, I do, like, they're actually pretty good now. And he's like, no, I've been to one of your shows. I just want to punch him, but he's a friend. I guess as men, we can do that to each other, right? We can punch each other. Tim?
Yeah,
something?
absolutely.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah, we're cool with that. Anyway, so, he was horrible. Of course, the next person that came up actually told a story, and then everyone else told a story, and we brought the audience back, and it was fine. But afterwards, Rachel just came up to me, and she was like, I was like, yeah, that was terrible. She goes, no, what was terrible is you were a sexist piece of shit. I said, what are you talking about? She goes, you were so obsessed with the fact that you wanted 2 women up there that you put someone who wasn't a storyteller, and you kind of screwed her as much as you screwed the audience and everyone else. It should have been about the story, dude. It should have been about the story. It should have been about 6 great stories. Not necessarily, like, throwing in and checking your stupid boxes. I'm like, what are you talking about? She goes, you just checked a box. You just wanted 2 women, so you just checked a damn box. I'm like, are you telling me that we need to do diversity without checking boxes? Or maybe she said it. I don't know. But in my head, I'm the one that actually said the line. But she would probably say different. And then we both kind of looked at each other and were like, yeah, from now on, we don't do that anymore. We just make it about 6 great stories, and we put those stories out. And that's what people will tell us. They'll say they're on other shows, and they feel like they're like the representative of something like, hi, I represent the Lollipop Guild, and I must go into this and talk about who I am as a representative of the Lollipop Guild. But on our show, people are just people. Actually, one of my favorites recently was a woman who was clearly, by the way she was dressed, her religion was clearly Muslim, but she just talked about snowmobiling in Vermont. Never brought it up. Had nothing to do with it. And she even said in one of the rehearsals, should I bring up that this is my faith? I'm like, who cares about your faith? You're talking about snowmobiling in Vermont. It has nothing to do with your story. No, you shouldn't bring it up, because you know why? You're a 3-dimensional human being who does all sorts of things, and you can dress the way you want to dress. Just go up, do it, and if they have questions, they can try to be polite afterwards. And if they're not, you can tell them to fuck off. And so that's what we do now. So basically, we are about diversity without clicking boxes. Oh, yeah, I don't know why I have this slide now. Yeah, so this is one of my shows. You can see that my fear of not having enough women on a show, this was a show about 2 months ago, stopped happening. I mean, a lot of people on the show. So this is the show that's coming up. This is the plug. So this is a show we're doing. I don't know about you, but it's been an interesting week, for me, at least. And we've been producing this show for about 2 months. It's called Crystal Clear. It happens at Changing Hands this Saturday. There's a 4 o'clock show, and there's an 8 p.m. show, and it's within collaboration of the Phoenix Metropolitan Men's Chorus. And it is a show that, although we don't really advertise it, it is focusing on the LBTGQ community. Thank you. I always trip that up.
Yeah, you did.
It's because I'm David Bowie straight, so I have an issue with that. Anyway, it's part of the community, and so many of the tellers are part of that community, but we're not really advertising it as such. And so the difference between this and the other shows we've done is the choir will be singing between the songs. We kind of envisioned it as like a Greek choir. So the storytellers tell the story, and then the choir responds with music, and we've been working back and forth. And that's this Saturday, and we're excited about it. And that's our graphic. That's not our graphic. That's our graphic. But anyways, yeah, so the whole all people, all voices, diversity without clicking boxes, it didn't come from some grand plan. It came from my sexist fuck up. Thank you.
Am I that short then? Okay. All right. Awesome. Give it up one more time for Dan, the story man.